The Dharma, incomparably profound and exquisite, is rarely met with even in hundreds of thousands of millions of kalpas. We now can see it, hear it, accept and hold it. May we realize the true mind of the Tathagata. Today is the seventh and final day of this May-June 2023 session at Mountain Gate in northern New Mexico. And I'd like to share with you today a teaching story from the Sufi tradition. This is from Tales of the Dervishes by Idris Shah. And this particular one is called The Tale of the Sands. These teaching stories are always metaphors. They're not specifically spelled out, but they're used as ways to contemplate and ultimately reach a deeper place of awareness and freedom. And this is a particularly apt one for Zen practice. A stream from its source in far-off mountains, passing through every kind and description of countryside, at last reached the sands of the desert. Just as it had crossed every other obstacle, the stream tried to cross this one, but it found that as fast as it ran into the sand, its waters disappeared. It was convinced, however, that its destiny was to cross this desert, and yet there was no way. Now a hidden voice, coming from the desert itself, whispered, "The wind across the desert." And so the wind crossed the desert, and so can the stream. The stream objected that it was dashing itself against the sand and only getting absorbed, that the wind could fly, and this was why it could cross the desert. By hurtling in your own accustomed way, you cannot yet get across. You will either disappear or become a marsh. You must allow the wind to carry you over to your destination. But how could this happen? By allowing yourself to be absorbed in the wind. This idea was not acceptable to the stream. After all, it had never been absorbed before. It did not want to lose its individuality. And yet, once having lost it, how was one to know that it could ever be regained? The wind, said the sand, performs this function. It takes up water, carries it over the desert, and then lets it fall again. Falling as rain, the water again becomes a river. How can I know that this is true? It is so, and if you do not believe it, you cannot become more than a quagmire. And even then, it could take many, many years. And it certainly is not the same as a stream. But can I not remain the same stream that I am today? You cannot, in either case, remain so, whispered the sand. Your essential part is carried away and forms a stream again. You are called whatever you are, even today, because you do not know which part of you is the essential one. When he heard this, certain echoes began to arise in the thoughts of the stream. Dimly he remembered a state in which he, or some part of him, was it, had been held in the arms of a wind. He also remembered, or did he, that this was the real thing, not necessarily the obvious thing to do. And the stream raised his vapor into the welcoming arms of the wind, which gently and easily bore it upward and allowed gently to fall as soon as they reached the roof of the mountain, many, many miles away. And because he had his doubts, the stream was able to remember and to record more strongly in his mind the details of the experience. He reflected, yes, now I have learned my true identity. The stream was learning, but the sand whispered, we know because we see it happen day after day, and because we, the sands, extend from the rivers all the way to the mountain. And that is why, whoops, went one page too far. That is why it is said that the way in which the stream of life is to continue on its journey is written in the sands. And there's a commentary. This beautiful story is currently in verbal tradition in many languages, almost always circulating among dervishes and their pupils. It was used in Sir Fairfax Cartwright's Mystic Rose from the Garden of the King, published in Britain in 1890. The present version is from Awad, Afi, the Tunisian who died in 1870. So let's go through that again. So here is a stream, living fully, going through life as a stream, tumbling over rocks, getting caught in log jams, and yet somehow continuing on until it reaches the sands of the desert. And then, no matter how hard it tries, it cannot cross the desert. It simply sinks into the sand. And the sands whisper to it, there is another way. You can cross the desert. The wind flies across the desert. You can be carried on the wind. But the stream doubts it, just as we, in our early years of practice, doubt what we're going to be able to do. And we are not trusting it. I remember a time in my early years of practice when I actually thought, and quite wrongly, thankfully, that Roshi Kapleau didn't know at all what he was talking about. Well, it turned out he did, quite thoroughly. And once I began to believe in myself and dare to let go, and this is what the stream was called to do, to let go its identity as a stream. And in that letting go of its identity as a stream, it was able to be taken up by the wind and become rain and flow down the mountain in a new life. This is exactly what we can do as well. But in order to do it, and of course we're not a stream, but in other ways we are a stream of life, we reach a point where death is upon us, and we can doubt it, we can try to fight it, as the stream initially tried to force its way over the sands and was simply sinking into the sands. Or we can surrender to the process and allow the dissolution of the sense of self to take place, the investment in the self to take place, and be carried by our karma into the next life. It requires surrender. Zen practice requires surrender. It requires letting go. And the more we allow ourselves to let go, and this happens through the Zen practice, the more free we become, the more able we are to meet whatever adversity or pleasant experience comes forth to us, and not be attached to results, and not be dismayed or upset or horrified or anything else, or even pleased or happy about results, because we are unattached to how we think we need to be. The self-image is a kind of a cloak that we develop as we grow, and it begins to dominate our life. It begins to drive our life because we have, in the process of it growing, lost track of the true reality of our being. And yet, at the end of our life, we will be once more cast into simply the beingness that we are, our true self. And if we have realized prior to that who we really are, through letting go, letting go, letting go, letting go, tuning in to the different energies in our bodies, the different sensations in our bodies that come up when we feel upset, happy, concerned, traumatized, whatever it is. As we begin to experience them, allow them to be fully experienced, simply as energy, they then dissolve. It's a long process, but it's a very, very effective process, and it's the only really effective process I'm aware of. Then, when we reach that moment, when our karma has ended for this particular life, we will not go kicking and screaming. We will simply allow ourselves to dissolve into the beingness that we truly are. And whatever our karma is, whether it's to come into another life or not, what quality of life that will be, is simply received. You've heard a lot about receiving in this week of Teishos. And receiving is vital. Most of the time when we have experiences, if they're positive experiences, we try to hang on to them. We clutch at them and try to keep them from falling away. Yet they will fall away. And if we have negative experiences, we try to push back and not experience them and try to get them out of our head, out of our mind, out of our experience, and try to only hang on to the good stuff. That doesn't work. The Buddha himself said so many millennia ago that our source of suffering is clinging. And the various forms of clinging he enumerated were trying to hang on to positive experiences, trying to deny or get rid of negative experiences, wanting this, not wanting that, and all its manifestations. As we begin to become more and more let go by simply receiving to the degree we can, and the more deeply we go with our Zen practice, and the more committed we are with our Zen practice, that is something that will happen in an ongoing way. It'll, of course, have its ups and downs, but life has its ups and downs. And as we are able to simply receive whatever up comes forth or what down comes forth, it's amazing the freedom that that affords. This is the gift of our Zen practice. And the more we can commit to the Zen practice, the more we can commit time and depth to the Zen practice, because we can sit on a cushion for, an hour a day or 2 hours a day, whatever, and just kind of hang out on the cushion. That's not real Zen practice. Real Zen practice is going deeply into our experience, our physical experience of the moment as it is. When things come up, we open and offer that radical acceptance, that reception without qualification to whatever is coming up. And in that process, we gradually become more and more free. And as you begin to experience that, you will want to experience it more. And it will become easier and easier and easier to do so as you become more and more let go through that process. Finally, the stream allowed, dared, trusted that the wind, if it gave itself to the wind, if it gave itself to the moment, it would be taken over the sands, and whatever it was, it will come back to life, whether as a stream, as a river, whatever. Once it let go to its ideas about having to be a stream, having to remain a stream, then it was able to be carried into the new life freely, with total acceptance and receiving what came next. This is what we do with our practice if we really want to become free. And it is something that is available to everyone. It's hard to get out of the habit pattern of wanting things to be this way, or wanting things to be that way, or not wanting them to be this way, or not wanting to be that way, wanting to do this, don't want to do that, wanting to be around people we care about, not wanting to be around people who may feel negatively about us, or at least we think they feel negatively about us. And that's also a big question, because we often will project our own ideas about things onto other people. We will project our own experiences with other people onto other people. And that's a dangerous position to be in, because it's not necessarily accurate, and often is not. We cause ourselves and other people all kinds of trouble by hanging on to old ideas and projecting them onto other people or other things. And we cause ourselves and others suffering as a result. So this is the way out. As the stream finally did, and of course the metaphor of the stream objecting initially is very much how it is for us too. Do we really trust that the Zen practice will free us? Do we sit there on our cushion with one thought outside, trying to observe and be safe? Or do we dare to give ourselves to the moment as it appears to be, tuning into whatever anxiety comes up as a result of that, offering ourselves fully, receiving fully, allowing? Maybe it will be an amazing, positive experience. In the end, dare. We just have to dare. That's why faith is so important in Zen practice. Faith that even though it doesn't look like we can become free, maybe, that we could, if we persist, and we can. I thank you for listening. I'll stop now and recite the 4 vows.